Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Just give us a real quick intro who you are.
I am Sarah. I am a mum of one son. He is just over 1 year old now. I've been doing aware parenting with him since he was about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, lucky little baby. Tell me a little bit about what was happening for you and Rafi and your family the time that you reached out to have a session.
When I reached out to you, I was wanting to night wean slightly, not completely, but he was feeding too much at night. I knew he had a breastfeeding control pattern. I was looking for some assistance and some validation mostly of how to decrease the amount of feeds he was having at night because I was starting to feel depleted with the amount of milk he was drinking. In addition to that, he was entering this toddlerhood stage. So, wanting a little guidance on attachment play because, in terms of aware parenting, I hadn't really delved into that side of it so much.
Amazing. And how frequently was he feeding? What was your night like?
It would depend on how many feelings he'd released in the day and whether I put him to bed or my husband put him to bed. If I put him to bed, he was struggling to cry or release feelings with me, and he would feed more during the night. If he had a larger release of feelings with my husband before bed, it would be a little bit longer. On a good night, we'd have a 3 to 4 hour stretch. On a more challenging night, every hour to 2 hours.
I so hear you. I was there myself and it was not a great time. I clearly remember this time.
Yeah.
Tell me, how were you feeling in 3 to 4? How were you feeling at that time?
At that time, I try not to let these challenges get on top of me or anything. I was probably, like I said, just feeling a bit more depleted. I get a bit sore and achy and things like that. And I think it was more, instead of feeling completely tired or overwhelmed or frustrated, it was more just I was coming to you more out of concern of I want to set our future up properly and I want to keep Rafi on going on a good track and make sure that he's able to share his emotions with me and not always stifling them. The reason I care about aware parenting is the emotional intelligence and awareness it brings to our children. I just wanted to stay on top of that and make sure he wasn't always having this breastfeeding control pattern.
And what happened in the session when we worked together?
What happened in the session? We talked about this. I think mostly we focused on the control pattern, right? So, yeah, when we met, we talked a lot about the control pattern and the timing of the feeds. And I think one of the most valuable pieces of advice you gave me was to start in the daytime stretching out the feeds. And I had not always been really strict with that. Starting in the day and then seeing that mirror at night was really good advice. I found that your personal experience with your own son, as well as the knowledge from people you've consulted with and your training, provided me not with just like practical tips, but also like validation. And I think maybe
Amazing.
that's what I was looking for. When you read the books, you can learn some of this theory and stuff, but implementing it can be quite hard because it's emotional seeing your baby cry. You're there with them and holding space for them, but you just want validation from people who get it. You're not always surrounded by parents who get this concept of parenting. So having you be a parent and an aware parenting instructor provided a lot of validation for me.
So glad to hear. Was there a breakthrough or an epiphany in the work that we did with you on the emotions that come up for you when you were listening to him crying?
What I enjoyed and I thought was unique about the session was the background and training you have. You were able to provide me with time and space to visit my own emotions and perhaps blocks that I'd experienced, feelings or beliefs that had come up in the past were influencing the way I was parenting Rafi, causing fears. What if something's wrong with him and I'm not addressing it when he's emotional? You allowing space to go into a meditation around this was very helpful.
And what happened after that? What happened after the session?
So after the session with you, I did focus initially on stretching the feeds during the day because I felt like that was the most practical way I could approach it. I think I was probably a little bit tired from listening to feelings at night already and trying to get on top of it. Starting in the day really helped, and we got into a really good rhythm. So we were down to 3 feeds a day. I don't mind if I feed him a bit more in the day. It doesn't bother me, but if he's not doing it to suppress emotions. But
What
if
else happened?
I started by stretching the feeds during the day, and that really helped, I think, because he started to get used to that. There were set times, and then he would release feelings around that, or it was a lot of frustration more than big emotions, I would say. But then we got into a rhythm with that, and I felt like it started to mirror a little bit at night. Sometimes he would cry before bed, sometimes he wouldn't. At night time, he would wake. It felt like he was having longer stretches of sleep. When he did wake up to feed, he was feeding and then rolling over and going back to sleep. He wasn't feeding and staying on the boob to try and get himself back to sleep. And I think that was a huge difference. And that made me feel better too, because it was like he was just looking for a bit. I don't mind giving him a bit of comfort in the moment if that's what he wanted, or he was thirsty or hungry or whatever it was. But it wasn't just like I'm the human pacifier all night long anymore. We had longer stretches of sleep, and then it was just short feeds and back to sleep. And that's the balance I was looking for.
Such a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did this impact your sleep and your energy levels in your life?
It helped a lot. I think it helped having him fall into that rhythm through doing it in the daytime first and then in the nighttime, because prior to having the session with you, I was constantly waking up and trying to listen to feelings at night. I was completely burnt out the next day. Going about it this way meant that I did get more sleep, and I was still listening to his feelings when I was awake, but by the time I would go to sleep at night, if he woke up with feelings like, hang on, let me rephrase, that's not right. Prior to the session with you, I was waking up a lot in the night to listen to his feelings to try and prevent him doing that thing of using me as a human pacifier. Whereas after the session, he was naturally getting used to stretching out the feeds. The feelings at night time weren't as big. We were getting it out during the day, and then at night time, I was able to sleep more without having to worry, is he using me as a pacifier or not?
And then you also know that he processes his feelings and he's not just suppressing it continuously.
Totally, yeah.
What would you say was the biggest tangible result from our session?
The biggest result, I think, was the fact that we stretched the feeds out in the daytime, and then it got better at night. When he did still have a drink at night, he would have a really brief one and roll over and go back to sleep. He wasn't looking for me to pacify him. That was the biggest result for sure. And that's helped me feel more balanced about it. I know a lot of
Amazing.
babies are completely weaned by this age. I love breastfeeding him. So this was where I wanted to end up. It was less frequent. It wasn't for the effect of pacifying. It was just like comfort or nourishment and then back to sleep.
I love breastfeeding too, and I feel like it's such a beautiful connection with your baby and
Yeah.
no intention of giving it up.
Yeah.
But that every hour, every 2 hours of feeding, daytime and nighttime, was driving me crazy when it was happening. Such a different game now. How do you feel now in just beautiful word?
Yeah. We're in a good place now. I feel like I'm where I wanted to be with this at this stage in his life in terms of breastfeeding him and the frequency of breastfeeding at this stage in his life. He's just over 1 year old. And I think you gave me a lot of confidence just to know that I am doing the right thing and I am on track. Your voice has been there when maybe I would have wavered more in the past. I've had the reassurance from our session.
And who do you think would benefit from my work or this work?
Who would benefit? Oh, there's so many parents I would love to bring to aware parenting. Anyone struggling with sleep challenges will benefit so much from aware parenting. It's a very compassionate way to deal with sleep with your children. It's not sleep training, and it's all about honoring their feelings, being there for them, and supporting them. You yourself add that value. We're giving that to the parent, but you give that to us. And you're very compassionate, relatable, and you're all able to hold that space for my own emotions when we explored that.
Thank you for sharing. I'm so happy to have helped. Thank you for sharing your experience. So happy to have you inspire other parents that they don't need to sleep train or let their babies cry it out.
No, this is a really beautiful way to do it. And if you can get in touch with your own feelings and be comfortable to support your baby through theirs, it's like it becomes an amazing experience in bonding with your child.
Thank you, Sarah. So appreciate it.